Eric Gordon's going to be very important.
Yes.
Cleveland rocks. You're on air.
We're recording right now?
Welcome to LazyBets podcast. David thinks that Eric Gordon's going to be a big deal tonight. You caught some live air analysis. I wanted to see what the public would think about our man getting some analysis in.
That's right.
On the fly.
That's some real-time analysis for you.
Eric Gordon's going to be a big deal tonight. I agree. My dad will agree. My dad loves Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon!
That's right. Former Clipper. We loved him back in the day.
Remember when he got Kelvin Sampson fucked out of Indiana University? I do. Hey, remember when he switched his commitment from Illinois to Indiana and was like, oh, fuck you, and then didn't say why? And then, a couple months later, see you, coach.
I didn't recall that part of Eric Gordon's story. I remember he was solid at Indiana. Man.
It's amazing how people forget those stories. John Wall. Do the John Wall as you don't take the SATs.
Why does a guy like Wall need to take the SATs with that kind of transition ability in the NBA?
Wait, was that John Wall? No, it wasn't John Wall. I'm sorry, that was we got that wrong. That was Derrick Rose.
Not really. Similar.
I mean, they both went to John Calipari type situations. Yeah, John Wall's clean, I think. Is any Calipari player clean?
Totally clean? I don't think so.
I doubt it.
I don't think I would be clean if I just walked in his vicinity.
That means Eric Bledsoe isn't clean.
It's probably true.
That's
Anthony
really
Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, they're all tainted.
That's really hard to digest. I hope Karl Anthony Towns becomes a Clipper.
That could be an interesting trade. I don't think they're trading him, though. I think that's all bullshit.
I hear he's available.
That's just me.
Let's talk about the NBA. Let's talk about the NBA draft a little bit, actually. That sounds like fun. Yeah, so this draft, there's some real interesting thoughts around Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
The young stud from Real Madrid. He's Serbian. He's 19 years old. He's won 2 MVPs already. He's basically a boss. Very, very big star out there. I have some thoughts around him, given that his international coach is coaching the Suns. But also, a lot of people are beginning to throw hot air around this draft. It's early, and it's clear that people are very competitive around these top picks, more competitive than normal, because these stories normally don't come out this early. This is very early for people to be talking about Doncic's value as compared to some others, and there's a real question mark around European players. One that has been kind of debunked as of late to me. Porzingis is a baller. There are a lot of other European players who are heavily contributing in the league right now that we can easily cite from number of teams. Bogdanovich, all these other guys. We could even talk about the Clippers.
Teodosic.
Yeah. They're viable players. It's basically what it comes down to. So I want to see what you think about the NBA draft.
Yeah, well, starting at the top, just based on what I've read, I can't say that I've watched a ton of Euro basket to explore Doncic's skills, but what I've seen, he looks.
Real Madrid's going down tonight, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think you are a big supporter of the Real Madrid basketball team or football team, right? Doncic, I think, just fits the modern NBA a lot better than DeAndre Ayton. Ayton seems like a physical freak, obviously, and 20 years ago, I think he would have been no doubt first pick.
Why isn't he first pick?
What's that?
Why isn't he first pick? He's a freak.
He's a freak, but I think Doncic just the wings. NBA is all about wings now. It's like the Rockets are succeeding because they have Harden and they have Gordon and they have Ariza, they have Tucker. LeBron's obviously the best player in the NBA. He plays the small forward spot. The Celtics with Tatum and Brown, that's the reason they're so good. The Warriors have forwards for days, and you see how much losing Iguodala, a versatile forward hurts their team. So I just think Doncic fits the modern NBA a lot better than Ayton. What do you think?
It's so hard for me to watch the NBA these days and think about center position not being drafted as number 1 overall when there's a guy like this available. This is just crazy to me. I mean, he's a monster, like an absolute monster from day one. Is going to impact things. Like, you have to scheme for him already. The kid's like 20, 19. Like, that's nuts. I can't even believe that we're talking about a European 3-point shooter going over this guy, considering that this guy is right in the backyard of the Phoenix Suns. And if they draft somebody other than him, they're crazy. I mean, Alex Len, we can call that a failed experiment at this point, and it's time to draft a new center. And I understand wanting to draft your Serbian understudy, but no. You're going to be very upsetting to your fans, in my opinion, if you take the wing. But I understand what you're saying about the way the NBA is going. I don't understand how it's transitioned to such a 3-point shooters league. I guess it's sabermetrics, but you've still got this aspect of Joel Embiid who's out there, and I mean, we're watching some of these big guys develop 3-point shots. I mean, Andre Drummond allegedly has developed a 3-pointer. I don't know if you've seen the video.
I would love to see that.
It's real. He's got a step back. He's got a step back, dude. It's crazy. You better watch out. He's actually training. He's been hanging out with BG. And
he should try to get over 60% on free throws first before he steps outside the 3-point line. That's all I've got to say about Drummond.
Hey, maybe he's just more of a distant shooter. It's his strength, you know. He's more like.
I think back to Ayton.
Yes.
I think if Embiid is a good comp, but I think Embiid's defensive potential and was far greater than where Ayton's is. People talk about Ayton's defense like maybe he just doesn't have the instincts for it. I mean, he's huge and he's a physical freak. He's obviously got the tools for it. But just sometimes those guys never really quite figure it out. Like DeAndre Jordan, it took him. He's a physical freak. We know
he is.
About him. It took him a good 8 seasons probably to get.
Aiden's a better offensive player. I mean, he's got better offensive moves. We can't really compare him to DeAndre. DeAndre was just a physical freak. Aiden's got polished offensive low post moves. That's a cat level of figure, but with more physicality. And that's scary to think about. I don't understand why that's not more powerful. I find that Cat has been absolutely misused in Minnesota. He should be much more of a dynamic player. I find that Blake Griffin is often misused, but nobody really understands how to use him, and that's part of the reason that it's so difficult. Hopefully his next coach in Detroit is able to figure it out because he's stuck with him for the next 4 years. But the thing is that the NBA is in this shift, you're right, to a 3-point shooter's game, which I don't love. I think that somebody needs to create a system that's low post oriented that can hang with some of these other teams because of the physicality of the defense. And I think that that's when we see this thing change, is when you see somebody throw together a bunch of great defensive players who can just ram the ball down your throat low post. I mean, that's when it's going to be interesting. But Curry has proven to be virtually unstoppable, and that's been very difficult. So when people are shooting like that and you've created a dynamic super team like this, I think you see a lot of followers like this. But at some point, somebody's going to get old, somebody's shot's going to fall off, and the low post game is going to come back because it's still viable, man. I can't understand basketball without low post being a thing. That doesn't make any sense. And the thing I know about this game is it rotates. It seems to be cyclical in a lot of ways, and so I bet it goes through a wave.
That's true. And coming from a youth basketball center, it's been hard for me as well, as a guy who strictly shot within 3 feet during my entire young basketball career. I understand that I would love to see the low post come back. I think an underrated part is how they call the low post. When you watch like Tristan Thompson guarding out in these games, Thompson is just harassing Horford.
Oh, he is.
And like tough shots. And basically you catch a guy on the perimeter, you get a foul call. You basically push a guy in the back, elbow him in the back in the low post, no call. You basically have to destroy a guy to get a foul call off a low post shot. I think that would be the way that it comes back, is if they start calling
respecting it. Yeah, they've completely lost respect for low post players, and I don't know what happened to cause that. It slows down the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, and I don't understand that. People seem to like 3-pointers. I was a 3-point shooter, and one of my favorite guys right now is a guy who's lesser liked in the league in general. And that's James Harden, because he's versatile enough to be able to take the three. But the thing that he does a lot more than anyone else is actually go inside and go to the rack and at least draw contact or go do something that's a little different than some of these other players. But yeah, I think it's been a really interesting thing to see, is the way the draft develops and the way people are drafting. The Clippers have an interesting position as well. We're both Clippers fans. I wanted to ask you, and I'll give you my opinion as well. Who is the best player in this draft in 10 years?
In 10 years? That's an interesting question.
Because those are questions. You've got to see the trajectory of the player. You and I know that there's ways players could break that are middle of this draft who are tremendous talent.
True. I mean,
look at the best player
I would probably wager on one of those two being the best, but I think people are sleeping on Marvin Bagley. Mm-hmm. Marvin Bagley was projected as the number 1 pick like a year ago. He's a physical freak. He can actually shoot it a bit from the outside. He's mobile. He looks like maybe a perfect kind of center in this new NBA, where you need a guy who can switch out on screens and is a little more agile. I think Bagley is getting slept on a little bit. And then obviously Jaren Jackson also seems like kind of a new age. He seems like he actually has really high defensive potential, along with being a 3-point shooter. I feel like he's got the highest floor, I guess. I think you take Jaren Jackson, you're pretty sure you're getting a good player for a long time. But yeah, of those players, I think I would still bet on Doncic, though. He just looks like a weird blend of like James Harden and Porzingis mixed or something. Mm. He's got that step back. He's got vision. He's got enough size. His only downside is he doesn't have that next level athleticism. But I don't think guys even like Tatum doesn't feel like he has like next level athleticism. He just dominates because he's so skilled.
Yep.
I think Doncic is that skilled. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think Colin Sexton is the best player in this draft.
Interesting. I see a little too much De'Aaron Fox, which isn't that much of a.
No, he's different. He's a gamer. There's something about that kid. When I watched him, that says like it factor, and it's not really like a college thing. It's just the way that he's gutty. The guy doesn't really feel like he's going to lose in the NBA, and that's scary. There are guys like that. One of them's playing for Utah, that's kind of the thing. He's sitting in the same area, and I don't know. We're seeing more and more talent come through college. The system is kind of working, but it's also failing at the same time. There's complaints on both sides. But yeah, the NBA draft should be very interesting. I think that it's going to be a trade-heavy draft, to be honest with you. But moving on to today's picks and some of the interesting things that are going on in the playoffs. Both of these series look headed for 7. I don't expect the Rockets to win tonight, and neither does Vegas. Vegas has the Rockets as a fairly heavy underdog. I believe the line is 12 points now. 12.5. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's pretty heavy in terms of the overall line. I'm going to pull up BetOnline AG right now, which has been our preferred sports book
throughout this entire NBA playoffs.
For the most part. The bonus is just so good. And they have a really good refer a friend program too. But we're looking at the game right now. I'm drawing up the lines. 12.5 now, minus 108. So that's they're encouraging you to take plus 12.5 on the Rockets. And that's interesting, considering the fact that this has been a close series, but it has been a Jekyll and Hyde series. And when Chris Paul has been absent, the Rockets have absolutely sucked. And, I mean, that's been pretty undeniable. David was ballparking at the beginning of this that Eric Gordon was extremely important in this game, and I don't think that was an understatement. Eric Gordon's probably the vital piece of where this game goes. What do you think, David? I mean, what's on your mind with the 12.5 spread today?
12.5 just seems excessively large to me, but just offhand, I think this really comes down to whether Andre Iguodala plays. Andre Iguodala is very quietly an extremely important part of this team. He's been out the last 2 games, and we've seen what the Warriors have done the last 2 games. They just look out of sorts on offense, which is just like crazy to even think about. This is one of the best offensive teams of all time, and they just don't feel like they can figure out this Rockets defense. I think a lot of that is because they relied so much on Iguodala to provide a little extra ball handling. He's a great passer. He just makes good decisions out there. I think adding that Hamptons 5 lineup or subtracting Iguodala, putting in Livingston. They even tried Quinn Cook at the end of last game. That didn't work.
Well, Andre Iguodala is a heck of a defensive player.
Yeah, exactly. I think it affects them a lot more than you would think. So if Iguodala doesn't play and you can get plus 12.5 with the Rockets, I think their defense isn't going to be hurt much because Chris Paul's out. He's a good defender, but they're probably going to rely more on Luc Richard and Mbah-a-Moute, and he provides another level of defense against those Kevin Durant ISOs. I think the Rockets plus 12.5 just feels like they're giving you too many points in a game where we just haven't seen a good Warriors offense in a few games now. So that would be, I mean, that just looks like too many points. I would think Warriors minus 8.5 is where this game would be, or 9.5, but 12.5 just, I mean, maybe they're begging you to take the points and they see a Warriors just avalanche at home, but I think that's too many points.
It looks like he has improved incrementally, but they have not made a call on whether he will play tonight.
Yeah, it's tough to make the bet before you know about Iguodala. I would honestly wait to hear about that news to make any sort of bet because he's quietly an extremely important part of that team.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to surprise the public tonight, though.
Surprise the public? You about to shock the world? What do you got?
I'm going to go ahead and take the over tonight.
The over? This is coming from a man who's bet the under in like 1,000 consecutive NBA playoff games. What is?
James Harden.
I think James Harden lights it up.
I think he just goes
20. 0 for 20 on his last 23-point attempts.
I think it's time.
It's time for him.
It's time for him to just go light the lamp. It's not going to do anything. They're going to lose, but he's going to score 50 tonight, and they're going to go over.
That also has to be discussed. The opportunity James Harden has tonight.
He's going to score 50 points.
This could be a legendary game for him. If he scores 50 and a Rockets win on the road without Chris Paul beating one of the best teams of all time, they're probably not going to win. But if they do, it's like iconic.
You're right, because they're going to win in 7 games, like we called. Okay? Like I called. Duh, Rockets in 7. The Celtics are going to win in 7 games. Duh. And then the Celtics are going to beat the Rockets' ass in the finals. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Al Horford, NBA champion. Boom!
You heard it here first, folks, and you heard it 2 weeks ago. I got to admit, our boy Brandon called it on the Celtics and Rockets and how strong they might be. And could you imagine Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown winning a title?
LeBron has to go legend. Like, full legend. The Celtics have been so fortified at home. They have not lost this whole playoffs.
It's crazy. I mean, he did go legend last night, but he looks like he's wearing out.
Drew Bledsoe's going to show up. You watch.
And that dude knows what's up. He makes it fly.
So, I mean, that's really interesting. We've been pretty much dead on for all of our series bets. At least we have EV. I mean, we're getting plus 500 on the Rockets. That's pretty solid. We're also looking at odds in a number of other places and places we've already won. I mean, LeBron already cleared the 3-point line.
I think we gave you over 8.5 3-pointers as one of our best bets for this series. He's got like 15 already. He hit 5 last night. That was an easy win. We gave you Terry Rozier over 92.5 points. I don't even know where he's at, but that was a winner. It was easy. My best bet for the series was over 6 games, just because I thought if it goes 6 games, that's a push, and it's probably going 7, and there it is. It's going 7. Yeah, we were pretty on top of this one. We got to pat ourselves on the back a little bit.
Public's a little easy to fade sometimes.
The fade?
Yeah, public's easy to fade. Fade LeBron.
LeBron, always fade LeBron. If you got that URL.
I still do. Yeah. FadeLeBron.com. It's not anything. Yep.
Anyways, do we have any other bets to talk about for the NBA? I don't know.
There's one more game left in the Celtics. Celtics tomorrow. I will have to write a more thorough write-up for this, but it's a minus 1.5 point spread. The Celtics are favored, minus 110.
Yeah, it's as close as possible right now.
I can't help but agree with the odds here. I think that the Celtics are taking it tomorrow. LeBron's going to be a free agent, and that's going to be really weird.
That will be very interesting.
Unless he goes full God mode, like he has to be a god tomorrow to win that game.
Yeah, he went to God mode last night, but dinged up that knee a little bit. He looks worn out. That'll be his 100th game of the season is tomorrow. He played all 82. He's getting pretty worn down. I mean, he's inhuman basically, but I don't know how much he can handle this season.
It's pretty inhuman to be able to keep going like that.
Yeah.
Pretty shocking. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much our coverage today. Hopefully you enjoyed our 3 segment videos if you made it this far. But continue following our picks. We are continuously giving you daily free picks against the spread. And enjoy that as you enjoy the Champions League final today.
Hell yeah. Go Liverpool.
Yeah, you'll never walk alone, everybody. Let's get that number 6.
All right.